Hey friends, I hope you are having a great start to your weekend. This is part 4 in the series on how to navigate the unraveling. And today I want to talk about resiliency and specifically building a base of resiliency. I love the concept of resiliency, which is to bounce back quickly to where we were before things get hard or things change or things fall apart. That said, I do not believe that the goal is resiliency. The goal is actually to grow beyond where we were before everything fell apart, before the unraveling, before the unfolding and turning upside down of our lives and our way of being, and whatever it is that you're going through right now, whether it's related to what's happening in the world or your own challenging chapter in big life transition. The goal is not simply to have the skill to bounce back to where you were before. It is to be able to grow through it into something more, something different, something better. In order to do that, we have to have a foundation of resiliency. And what that means is we have to be able to get back up and go again, no matter how hard we fall, no matter how spectacularly we fail. We have to have this fundamental attitude of, even if I fall, I will get back up. And something that I have shared before is that for a good chunk of my younger life, I was very depressed. I was very suicidal. I didn't want to be here. And at one point, I made the choice to stay. I made a full body, mind, soul, heart, everything on board choice to stay and see this life through. And what that has given me is a foundation of resiliency, because what it means is no matter how bad things get, no matter how awful and horrible they are, or how unbelievable and crazy and chaotic it is, or how much it falls apart, there's nothing else to do but get back up and go again, and to keep trying and to keep seeing it through. Yes, sometimes I stay down for longer than I want to. If you've read the Unravel book, you can see that it was quite a journey for me to rise up and come back from trauma and PTSD and a lot of other things, but it has given me the space of resiliency where I know no matter what takes me out, no matter how hard I fall or how long I'm down for, I will get back up and I will keep going. And so this is what we want to cultivate in ourselves. And it's that foundation for being able to then move into growing beyond where we were before. So we call this, in some bodies of work, post-traumatic growth, meaning we don't just want to bounce back, especially when we've been through something or in the middle of something that is changing who we are at our core. It's changing our way of being in the world. It's shaping us even deeper into who we're here to be and what we're here to do. And it's altered life as we know it. So there is no bouncing back. There is only growing through and growing beyond and growing into something more. And so one of the things that is really important to understand, and that was really challenging for me to wrap my brain around at first, is that the fall is not the hard part. We think about it as the hard part, right? The fall, it hurts, it sucks. We hit rock bottom, everything falls apart. We're in the middle of loss, everything's turned upside down, we're on the floor. It's horrible. But the hard part is choosing to get back up, choosing to rise, and choosing to come back and to create something different in the aftermath of it. And I really had this realization it was about 11 months after my loss. So I had been beginning to heal my PTSD. I was in a relationship that was toxic, but I didn't know it yet. I was still grieving quite a bit. And I woke up on Thanksgiving Day and I was just overwhelmed with another wave of grief and sadness. And I felt like I was never going to be through it. I was never going to be able to get to the other side. I was never going to be able to create something different. And so I picked up a book on the hero's journey, which is something that I love and is a framework that journey mapping is somewhat based on. So we incorporate aspects of the hero's journey. And if you're not familiar with it, the hero's journey is a narrative pattern by Joseph Campbell. And it essentially breaks down any story, any myth, any movie, any book that you've ever come into contact with. It's a framework for stories, and it's a phenomenal tool for personal growth when you really understand it and how it applies to all of the different seasons of living and all of the different journeys that we go through as people. And we're in the middle of a journey collectively right now, and we're also going through our own journeys. So what I realized on that Thanksgiving day when I picked up the book on the hero's journey was that the fall was not the hard part. We don't just fall and hit rock bottom and bounce back. We don't just go around the cycle of the hero's journey and move through death and rebirth and swing up all the way back around. So the hero's journey is cyclical, and I'll share more about that when we start digging into journey mapping here in the group for free over the coming weeks. What I realized was that rising up, coming back, healing, and growth were all choices. And they were the hardest choices that I was going to have to make because they require a series of small, seemingly insignificant, incredibly challenging and heartbreaking choices every moment of every single day. They're hard. They hurt. We don't want to do them. We don't know how to do them anymore. And we have to keep making this choice to rise up and come back. And so when we talk about resiliency, again, it's not just bouncing back to where we were before. We're actually having to choose to grow through it and grow beyond where we were before. Nothing about this is easy. Nothing about it is pretty or inspiring. And that's somewhere we get led astray when we hear other people's comeback stories or we watch movies and things like that. There's a lot of positioning and talk of it got really bad and I had my fall from grace and I hit rock bottom and things sucked for a while, and then I turned a corner and I came back and I made my comeback and I got the job or I got the girl or I made the money. We don't talk about how those comeback stories are full of those tiny, exhausting choices every moment of every day over and over and over again. What those choices are different for each of us. So some of my earliest choices in terms of rising up and coming back looked really not that exciting or inspiring. It was things like getting out of bed and getting dressed. That was a huge win at first. It was things like driving to the gym and fussing the whole way there, only to walk in, walk around it, maybe do an exercise or two, and then walk back out to the car, cry my eyes out, and go home and go back to bed. I had to make those choices over and over again until they started becoming a little bit easier. And so they started becoming second nature until I was able to do them at a deeper level with more intention, with more presence, with more purpose. So we have to move ourselves forward, and it takes all of this choice. So again, the hard part of these journeys that we walk are making the choice to rise up and come back, making the choice to take all of the actions and to grow beyond where we were before. So a couple other things I want to talk about that are important for building this base of resiliency so that we can grow through and beyond where we were before is perspective. We have to have perspective, and it's so easy to lose sight of perspective. And this is not to minimize or diminish or invalidate our experience right now. Things are crazy, things are hard, things suck. We're allowed to be sad. This is not about comparing traumas or losses or grief. Everything that you feel right now is valid. It is allowed. It is exactly what it needs to be. And the most important thing that you can do is feel your way through that. And having perspective. This is one moment in time. It's a series of moments, and we don't know how long this moment is going to last, but it's just one moment. It is one soundbite in the story of our lives. And if we can remember that, even when we're in it and we're giving our all to being present and working through it and growing through it, and we're doing the hard work of showing up every day and feeling our feelings and taking the actions that we know we need to take and making those choices, if we can remember that this is one small moment and eventually we will be on the other side of it. It might hurt like hell as we get to that other side of it. It might be the hardest thing that we have ever done. There might be a ton of unknown, and we might make mistakes or have missteps or all of these things along the way. But at some point in time, this moment will be behind us. And so there is a balance of being very present in the moment and the experience that you're in so that you can really get the most out of it. You can really bring all of yourself to it. You can navigate it in the way that is best for you, and remembering that this too shall pass. It's not to be dismissive because, again, it might hurt like hell as it passes. It is to remember that perspective, This is one moment. This is one soundbite in our story. And if we can remember that while we're being present and fully engaged in it, it is easier to get ourselves through to the other side. So perspective is key. Persistence and perseverance. So important. Keep getting back up. I know how hard it is. I know how much it hurts. I know how impossible it feels sometimes. You don't have to do it in an inspiring manner. It doesn't have to be the best action you've ever taken. You just have to keep leaning in and keep trying. One foot in front of the other, one moment at a time, one action at a time. We just do the things we think we cannot do by doing them, and we're persistent and we persevere. So again, we get knocked down. It's hard. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes we need more sleep and we need to cry a lot more and we need to numb out and watch TV for hours at a time. That's okay if it's a conscious choice because that's what you need. But you keep getting back up. You keep moving forward one step at a time, one imperfect action at a time. And sometimes it feels like one step forward and 5 crashing steps backwards. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you're getting any traction at all. That is okay. That is part of moving forward. We have to be willing to move through the really messy, hard, chaotic, confusing parts so that we can get to the other side and we can get to a place where we're clear and we're able to take certain actions with more ease. It's part of the process for it to be messy and hard and challenging. You're not doing it wrong if it feels like 1 step forward and 5 steps backwards. I promise you that. That is a normal part of the process. And there's so much that we're going to talk about around this in terms of when we start to take these actions, we trigger our subconscious programming into a freak out. We go into the terror barrier and all of this stuff starts to happen that makes it even harder. So if it's hard for you, know that it's normal. It's to be expected. We just forget to talk about that when we share our inspiring stories. It is supposed to look messy. It is supposed to be harder than anything you have ever done. It is not meant to be easy. You are supposed to take a step forward and have 5 crashing steps back. This is how we start to get momentum, even though it doesn't feel like it. So persistence and perseverance. And one of the last parts is, of course, another challenging one, because this is the part of the work that is not easy at all. Surrender. Some people don't like the word surrender because they feel like it means giving up. Surrender does not mean giving up. Surrender means being open and receptive and willing to flow with what is happening around us. And this flow is so important because we don't know everything. We are allowed and encouraged to claim our desires, to set our sights on something, to have a goal and a vision. How we get there is not always up to us. Sometimes we have to be shaped more deeply into who we're here to be in order to have that. So sometimes it's meant to get hard before it actually comes to fruition. Sometimes it's just things happen, right? Or we don't actually know what it is that we're capable of or what it is that we want. So we have a limited frame. We are setting goals and intentions from a headspace and a paradigm and a belief system that we're in right now. And we have to be open to the fact that as we start to journey down the path, as we start to do the work, as we start to grow and heal and find a new sense of wholeness, an entirely new vision or way of being or life or goal is going to be revealed to us. I had no idea when I was going through everything that I was going through that I would be creating something like Call of the Void or journey mapping, that I would be writing the Unravel book. I had no idea that I was going to be birthing a body of work that I'm just at the beginning stages of. There's no way that I could have set that goal at the beginning, but I was willing to keep setting my sights on where I wanted to go, being really clear on that desire, being willing to do the work even when it was hard and messy, and surrendering to the unfolding and the unraveling. That happens internally, it happens externally, being willing to see the signs and learn the lessons and get guidance as I went. So important. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm trying to keep these under 15 minutes for you. Please let me know what questions you have. And remember, we want this base of resiliency, not so that we can simply continually bounce back to where we were before, but so that we have the skills that we need to keep getting back up and doing the work and ultimately growing beyond where we were before. It's not supposed to be pretty and easy. It's supposed to be hard. You're not doing it wrong if it's messy. All right, that's what I have for you today, and I will be back tomorrow with the 5th video.